Turning down a contingent offer could mean walking away from your best deal, but accepting one without a plan could cost you thousands of dollars. So let's talk about how we make the right call. Hey, I'm Adam Stinespring. I am a realtor here in Lynchburg, Virginia, and today we're talking about contingent offers, specifically when we're talking about a buyer needing to sell their home first before they can buy yours. These offers can be great or they can be really risky and a headache. So before we decide, okay, this is a terrible idea, let's talk about the kind of contingencies and how we mitigate the risk for you as a seller. The first thing to note is not all contingent offers are the same. So the first question we're going to answer is, how do contingent offers work? Well, a contingent offer just means that the buyer wants to buy your home, but their financing only allows for them to sell theirs first before they can be approved to get yours. This usually is outlined in something we call a subject to sale/settlement addendum, which tells you exactly what kind of contingency you're dealing with and where their home is in the process when they're making this offer. So these two types of contingencies. The first one is what we call a subject to settlement. This means that the buyer's home is already under contract and is just waiting to close. Their home sale is already in motion, which makes this a lot safer than the second one, which is a subject to sale. Subject to sale is the buyer's home is not yet under contract, which means they still have to find a buyer for their home before they can move forward with the sale of yours. And this is where it gets risky. With all this risk, when would I even consider taking this kind of offer? Well, that leads to the second question. When do we think about taking a contingent offer? Well, if your home has been sitting on the market for a while and you're getting no other strong offers, then a contingent offer is always going to be better than no offer at all. And as we talked about earlier, if the buyer's home is already under contract and they're only subject to settlement, then the risk is pretty low, especially if they're past their own home other contingencies like inspections and appraisals. But we also have to look at how competitive their market is. If homes in their areas are selling quickly and their home is more likely to move quickly, then this is not going to be a problem. A buyer in a hot neighborhood with a solid contract in place is going to be a safer bet than someone who is just hoping to sell their house soon at whatever price they were trying to get. But specifically in our market, it doesn't always make sense. So let's move to the third question. When doesn't it make sense to take a contingent offer? Well, if you're in a hot seller's market and homes are selling fast, then you probably don't need to accept the first contingent offer that you get, especially if it's subject to sale and not settlement, because we can just wait for a buyer who doesn't have that one. If the buyer's home isn't under contract, the subject to sale, and their home is overpriced, but let's say you don't get any other offers and you just get a contingent one. Well, if the buyer's home isn't under contract yet and it's just subject to sale and their home is overpriced and it's in a slow moving market, then you could be waiting months if you were to accept this with no guarantee that they will sell. What I do is I will always go to the agent in their area, or if I am the agent, I will always make sure that their home is priced right so that it moves quickly and the whole process goes well for both buyer and seller. With all this risk, how do we protect you, the seller, from being strung along if you were to accept a contingent offer? Well, this is where number 4 comes in, the kickout clause. If a buyer's offer is subject to sale, meaning their home isn't under contract yet, you need to have what's called a kickout clause. A kickout clause lets you keep your home on the market while you're under contract with their subject to sale with the contingent buyer. If another non-contingent buyer comes along, the first buyer now has a deadline of 48 to 72 hours to move their subject to sale to subject to settlement, or you now get to accept the other offer. Let me give you an example. Let's say you accept a contingent offer subject to sale, but 2 weeks later, another buyer comes along and gives you a better offer. Well, thanks to the kickout clause, you can go back to that first buyer and say, hey, you've got 48 hours to move forward with your home sale contingency, or we're going to move on to this other offer. The only note here is this kickout clause is only for subject to sale offers, not subject to settlement. That's an important distinction. Okay, so we have a contingent offer in hand. How do we maximize leverage for you, the seller, and give you the upper hand? Well, this takes us to number 5, how to negotiate contingent offers. The first thing we're probably going to do is ask for a stronger earnest money deposit, because this makes sure that the buyer is willing to risk some more and is serious. Number 2, we're going to set a firm deadline for when they have to sell their home so you don't get drug out indefinitely. And the third thing we're do is we are going to consider a shorter closing period once their home sells, so this way everything keeps moving on in a timely fashion. At the end of the day, contingent offers aren't bad if you handle them the right way. Knowing whether a buyer's home is already under contract, using a kickout clause when necessary, and negotiating strong terms is going to keep you, the seller, in control. If you're considering selling and you're worried about this, let's talk. I want to help you make the best decision in your situation. I'll see you at the closing table.